Folks, I'm Colonel Sanders and you're not, and welcome to Tetris every day of August. Today is day 16. Tonight we will be streaming Fortnite at some point with the new season. But for now, this will do. And yes, it's a bit early of a stream, but if y'all miss it, I know you'll see the pre-recording. Oh, okay. Good afternoon, Opie. Good afternoon, Wii U. Nevea won't play this. It's too fast for her. Plus, the only other system I have it on is the Oculus, and it's very difficult in VR. Not ignoring comments, I'm just trying to focus. Well, I'm autistic, OP, so I call it my grand autism mode because I have what's called Asperger's, and they actually changed it to something else because of political correctness, and somebody in 2018 wanted to find out what it actually was called and why it was called that. And they found out Hans Asperger's was the developer, the founder of the disease, the form of autism. So now they say not to say it because it could traumatize people, but it didn't traumatize people before because nobody knew about it until they actually decided to look it up. So my papers say Asperger's, I'm calling it Asperger's until my doctor papers say otherwise. That is what I'm diagnosed with. So Asperger's, which I've dealt with my entire life since I was little, has, among other complications, it acts as a superpower for hyperfixating on things. So when I get into Tetris like this, I go into what I call grand autism mode with my Asperger's, and I hyper focus. That's why I'm able to get such high scores. Anyone else with what I have or other forms of autism, look at it as a superpower. It allows you to focus on things. You can do things differently than most people can, and that's not a bad thing. I've dealt with it all my life. On TikTok, people's tried to not really cancel me, but tell me what I was saying was offensive, and you know, I've dealt with having this form of autism all my life, and now I'm being told I can't tell people what I have because it offends people. I never offended people before, never heard anything about it before until somebody decided to look up why it sounded so funny. Like, I wanted to know why it sounds so funny too. Like, who comes up with the name Asperger's? Well, let me find out. If you don't know who Hans Asperger is, type him up. I'm not sure if I could talk about it because this isn't labeled as a history, like world history live kind of deal. And we talk about World War II. You know, it's involved in World War II. You know, things I read about him are not too good. He did discover the illness, but what his response to it was not too good. Things that he did. And the things that he did is why they're changing the name of it, because people decided that they were offended by it. But I'm not going to be told I can't tell people what I've had, what I've suffered with my whole life, and my story about it, just because it offends people. I've had it. I get offended when people call me certain slurs because I have it. So if I gotta deal with that, I'm allowed to talk about what I have. That's my view on that. Not everybody has to agree to it. My goal is not to offend, but I've seen other social media influencers who are proudly announcing that they had the Asperger's because they see it as I do, as a superpower, a way of us you know, performing differently than others. Yeah, we have socializing issues, which doing this stuff online has helped me tremendously with that. You go back to my videos years ago, when not the ones where I'm necessarily talking with my friends because I know them, but where I'm talking by myself to the viewers, and you won't even recognize who I am, because how much this interaction with people that I've had online has helped me overcome my symptoms. But I watch some social media influencers, mutuals of mine, and folks who had in the past proudly announced what they had and tried to bring awareness to it because it's a high functioning form of autism. It makes socializing awkward. We learn slower or differently. Now, it's not the same for everybody. Like for me, I've had meltdowns. I get really bad meltdowns, or used to. It's very rare for me to get one now. My family had to deal with it. They had to learn about it. I'm the only one in the family that was diagnosed with it. Doesn't mean I'm the only one in the family with it, or that's had it, but I'm the only one that was ever diagnosed with it. But these influencers that were proud to talk about it made me proud and less embarrassed to have it. Suddenly changed when people were telling them it's now an offensive term, outdated term. It's a medical term, and they may have changed the medical term, but until my papers say otherwise, I'm going to say what I have. I'm not diagnosed with AD, I'm diagnosed with Asperger's. That's what my papers say. And they changed it to avoid political correctness. I don't agree with being an a-hole on purpose. I don't agree with saying racial slurs. I don't agree with saying offensive things to purposely that we know upset people. I haven't met one person that's actually offended by Asperger's. I haven't. Doesn't mean there isn't people out there that's not. Some people have to be told what to be offended by. But they now have changed, I think they call it AD now. Autism, something like that. If people want my papers to be updated, they could pay for the doctor visit that has to go with the diagnosis. I'm not going to the doctor just to have my papers politically corrected. But yeah, I will confuse the common liberal and the common conservative, I will confuse them. They'll think I'm on their side, and then I'll say something that will confuse them, and I think it's funny. Not everybody has to agree with each other. I've been trying to spread that around. I'm not held by a contract with a company yet, so I can talk about things. We don't have to hate each other. We don't have to we don't have to disagree, and we don't have to agree. It's okay. I don't agree with being offensive on purpose, though. I got some friends that are, and I let them know I don't agree with it when they do it, especially when they do it on lives, and that's why I don't have them on lives as much anymore. Just because not that I'm afraid they're going to offend somebody and someone's going to cancel me over allowing someone on my channel like that. I don't find it very becoming of a channel to be talking that way at all. It brings back vibes of early YouTube channel starting and kids saying very inappropriate things in the hopes of going viral, and then they regret it years later when that comes out. We all been there, but I mean, crying out loud, I'm 27, Tyler's in his 20s, Matt's almost 18, and they don't need to be talking that way on lives. You guys know them from my streams. Matt's gotten really good at it. Tyler doesn't care what his reputation is, but that's why I don't have him on as much anymore. I have Matt on more. He's good. But Tyler, I have to record Tyler and edit him out. Well, crap. There we go. 800 ASD is what it's called now, huh? Never heard of it. I got a couple of my friends that have ADD, ADHD, as well as Asperger's. My little sister has ADHD. My doctors told my grandparents, do not let the schools tell you that your kid has ADHD or ADD. He has Asperger's. The hyperfixation thing, I mean, that's part of why I know a lot of stuff about my family, and my hyperfixation picked up my uncle, and I wanted to learn everything that I could about him. And that led to what we're doing now. So, again, I'm not offended by it. I've been called the R slur and many other slurs throughout my whole life, bullied for having it my whole life. Nobody, not even the school system, would do a darn thing about it. I was just told, you gotta live with it, ignore the bullies. And now we live in a world where we need to accommodate for everybody. I'm not saying people need to be bullied, but I'm saying it's kind of good now that we're getting into a way where we're anti-bullying, but I had to deal with it my entire childhood. I don't want anyone else to have to go through that stuff. But nobody did a darn tootin' thing for my bullies. In 7th grade, I was beaten up by Brandon Flowers. You won't know who he is. You'll look him up and you won't be able to tell which Brandon Flowers he is. But I was beaten up by Brandon Flowers. He waited for me at the end of 7th grade, punched me in the gut, dragged me across 4 hallways, and the teacher stood over me laughing. Had I thrown a fist back, this was the Florida school system in 2010, I think it was. Had I thrown a punch back to get him off of me, I would have been held as the aggressor. And that is what I grew up being told the whole time. When, in addition, my father being in school, when he was bullied, my grandfather told him, you wipe that kid's clock if he touches you again, and I'll deal with the principal. Not allowed to do that today. So, the age of censorship and stuff, I don't agree with it. Nobody should be saying the N-word. Nobody should be saying the R slur or any other derogatory statements towards somebody's disabilities, towards somebody's race. I can understand within a group of friends like you and I, we're really close friends. We might make fun of each other's disabilities. He makes fun of my autism, I make fun of him, but we're friends. We try not to do it on live. We'll throw hints at it where we understand what it means, but we won't do that where we know it's going to hurt somebody. But when you're just randomly on the internet talking and you're not, you guys here, I don't need to be saying those things at all. Nobody does. It's not right. It's unbecoming. It's not funny. But I do not agree with cancel culture. And it will not fly on this page. That's why if I agreed with cancel culture, Uncle Harley would have been canceled already. That's why I don't care who I offend when someone says he stole the recipe. He was white. He had to be racist. He was from the 1890s. He had to be racist. And I said, no, he wasn't. I don't care if that hurts your feelings or not. But just because you think that's it, that's not right. He was not a racist. He did not steal the recipe. The Colonel was a very good man. Now, will I say that there were racist people in the family? Yeah, there was. And it's no one's business of who that was because they had nothing to do with Kentucky Fried Chicken. We focus on the facts here and the good things, not the bad things. And so, yeah, there was racist folks back in his day in the family and outside of the family. He knew racist folks. Did he agree with it? No, he didn't. You can't control somebody else. You can't force them to change. All you can do is offer a different perspective. And he was ahead of his time. He was not racist. He did not hate people based on their skin color, their identity. Although back then people didn't identify as whatever they identify as now. But he didn't care whether you were gay or straight or whatever. He loved everybody. As long as you liked his chicken, he'll serve you the food and he would help you out. Anybody. He would never turn anybody down. And this is how I live by this, because this is how I was raised too, was on the same mentality. Is don't turn anybody down that needs a helping hand. And Uncle Harley was in a car accident, and he split his head open. And he was walking home covered in mud and all kinds of things, blood dripping down his face, and this complete stranger picked him up and gave him a ride. He didn't want to go to the hospital. He put mud on his cut. He went home, took a shower. But he said from that day, he was a nobody. And for somebody to come by and pick him up and help him out, he would be sure that if he ever got in a position where he could help anybody, he wouldn't turn a soul down. And he kept that promise. And that's how I was raised. Respect everybody. There's people going around that purposely say things to offend people because they think it's funny. Or they just want to be an a-hole and say things that shouldn't be said. There's no reason to say it, you know? There's no reason to say it. Why? Why would anybody want to say it? Now, the only rumor about Colonel Sanders that was real is he cheated on his wife. Now, other people say he didn't cheat on his wife. He cheated on his wife with Claudia. That is why the daughters were how they were with her. That is why Margaret wrote the book, The Colonel's 11 Herbs and a Spicy Daughter, and exaggerated some things in the book. It's because they did not get along with Claudia too well, and they took Josephine away from their father. They took their mother away from their father. So he cheated on his wife with Josephine. That was wrong of him to do. What do they call that? Adultery. So that's the only thing that's been true. Everything else, all the rumors that have been presented to me have been false. Yeah, well, you get it. So, in the Florida school system with my Asperger's, response was to put me in special need classes. And my experience in special need classes, okay, my thought process may be slower, but it used to be super fast even with the autism. I had cancer, got chemo. After the chemo, it really slowed my thought process down. It's coming back to me slowly, but because I was slower than most folks, and because I was classified as autistic, they threw me in a special need class. And being somebody in my position, I wasn't as, I don't know what the term is, but I wasn't like everyone else in the class. They actually needed a special needs class. I didn't. I could understand things. It just took me a little bit longer. So being where I could understand things and sitting in those classes and watching how in the Florida school system, how they treated special needs students, it didn't do a darn thing to help any of us. At all. So we're focused on cancel culture, canceling certain names and words that might offend somebody. Look into the things that it can actually help people and fix those systems. That's what needs to be canceled, is things that aren't working, and then do things that are working. So, that's my 2 cents. We got a little political this live. I try not to get into that stuff anymore because I just don't want to deal with people, if that makes sense. I don't got the social battery for it. But I will not bend my knee to cancel culture. If my diagnosis for Asperger's is ever changed in the future on my paper, it says ASD autism. Okay, I'll call it that. Until the day that it says that. I'm assuming ASD, the AS stands for Asperger's. Are we just abbreviating it? Like, why is it called ASD now? Now I got to go research that. I assume that that's what that means. But if my papers ever say that and it doesn't cost me a couple $100s to go get it changed, then I'll call it that. Not because of political correctness, but because that's what my papers say. Right now my papers say Asperger's. I don't like the word. I think it's funny. I think it sounds stupid. Like we use as Asperger's. It doesn't sound right. So, you know, that's why I would look up why is it called that. We didn't have driver's ed. I think schools should start teaching how to count money. They should start teaching finances. I really think that. And I should say everything I'm saying here is my own personal experience and opinions. You don't have to agree with them. You could be mad about them. You could do whatever you want about them. I said what I said. They do not reflect Kentucky Fried Chicken. Anybody that represents Kentucky Fried Chicken, they do not. If I did represent Kentucky Fried Chicken, I am not representing them now by speaking about this stuff. Just to cover all bases there. It is my own opinions, which I am entitled to. And until I sign a contract that says that I cannot state my own opinions, I'm going to state them when I want to. I think I'll end this conversation with, I think everybody needs to get off their high horse. We do not need to bend our knees to everybody to walk on eggshells from offending. You could be offended. I get offended every day. Uncle Harley's image gets offended. You know, when you're kids, it's one thing to get upset over it, but as an adult, you look at it and you're like, you know, what the crap ever. You know, move on. Ignore it. So, that's where I leave that. So everybody needs to get off their high horses with everything. Cancel culture is stupid. If you don't like something, don't give it attention. You give it attention, that's why more people see it. I don't care what someone said 40 years ago. Their opinions might change. 8 years ago, I hated Kentucky Fried Chicken. 8 years later, today, I love them. Opinions change. So I don't care what someone said 40 years ago. If you want to vote for Mickey Mouse, I don't care. You know, we don't have to agree on things, but we also don't have to hate each other on those things. And I also think everybody needs to quit the division, quit hating each other just because you think differently. I think people on the right need to quit being a-holes. I think people on the left need to quit being ignorant. I think the people up in the hierarchy of the right need to quit being a-holes, and the hierarchy of the left needs to quit being a-holes. You know, I want to get back to a day where we don't hate each other. Someone says something wrong, get taken down. Like I said, anybody that knows me, if you're on this page, you know me. I don't really agree with saying bad things on video or where people could hear it or in general. I don't agree with it. I don't even agree with cussing in everyday language. I'll do it if I'm mad, but I don't agree with it. And so somebody wants to get pissed off about me saying Asperger's, you know, look at the other stuff. I said, and I quote, I do not want to offend anybody, but that's what my papers say is Asperger's, and I've had that for my entire life, and that's what I'm going to call it until my papers change. And I think that's fair. If you don't have to think that's fair, and that's fine. You can voice your opinion. Hey, Goose. We've been yapping before I get on to another one. Open the live up on my phone. You know, usually when I get ranting on about the stuff, I take it down because I don't want anybody to be ticked off. I don't want to deal with it. And, oh, I didn't change my thumbnail for the live, did I? It still shows Fortnite. That's funny. Yeah, I don't, hey, everybody hit the like button, please. And I don't agree with cancel culture at all. I also don't agree with making fun of somebody because if they identify as something else. You know, I don't understand it myself, but I don't have to understand it because I don't fall into the category. But people that get offended by other people identifying as something else, like, who cares? It doesn't bother you. It doesn't affect your life. It doesn't affect my life. Let them live their life how they want to live it. Also, don't shove it down. I saw somebody online saying that they were going to sue every single person that misgendered them. And if you don't have it displayed, and they didn't have it displayed at the time on their page, someone's to assume based on what they're usually used to looking at. I mean, that video was made to make people mad at the video to get views, obviously, but like, don't act like that. But if people act like that, it's their right to act like that, you know? I see something that I don't agree with or don't like, you know what I do? I block it. I move on. Sometimes if it's a political thing, I'll leave a comment and then never go back to that video again. I'll put my 2 cents in and leave. So, appreciate it, Opie. And you'll find that there's people from all ends of the aisle that follow me on here. And this place is welcome for everybody that loves fried chicken. A lot of people always asking my opinions, and I never give them anymore. I got into it with Rosie O'Donnell. I owe her an apology, and I have apologized, but she hasn't seen it. I got into it with her on Twitter years ago because I was a naive young man, first year being able to vote, and everything that I was able to see my first election I paid attention to, seemed like a joke. So I made a joke that I shouldn't have made on Twitter, and I insulted her. The joke wasn't funny, me looking back at it now. I'm not even going to say what it is out loud. But she responded to it, and I decided I would be a smart aleck with her. And I was raised better than that. I was raised to respect my elders. And we just went back and forth at it, and I kept insulting her. And she insulted me, and just back and forth. I think I was 18, 19 years old at the time. Looking back at that, that's one of the things I regret. But, you know, years of growth and development and seeing how people treat each other, I just decided no more. I'm not going to feed into this anymore. So, we're going to do another round. I'm going to do another ad break real quick, and then we'll get into the round. Thank you all for listening to me yap. If you don't agree with what I said, that's okay. Leave your comment. I don't mind hearing your opinion. It is very possible for my opinions to change when another perspective is presented calmly in front of me. If someone acts like a jerk about it, you're getting blocked. I don't care what your opinion is. I don't care how you feel. But if you are respectful about it and you give me a different perspective, I will listen to it and maybe change my mind. And if I don't change my mind, oh well, it just really depends. If folks are wondering, I'm an independent now. I don't care what left or right is trying to feed me. I see the corruption in both. And if you don't see the corruption in both, again, that's your right not to, but I see the corruption in both, and I don't want that anymore. I want to get back to some normalcy where we can make friends and have family gatherings again. And I don't see anything wrong with that. You shouldn't have to hide who you are. And that's all there is to it. All right, ad break. Now, let's play some Tetris. Oh, you got an ad finally? Well, if you guys watch 5 seconds or more of the ad, that gives me some money, so I appreciate it if you do. And if you don't, thank you for watching this anyways. I've always been afraid of voicing my opinions in today's age now, based on the fact that maybe Kentucky Fried Chicken won't work with me, but if I make this stuff work, then I won't be worried about that, because I know I could carry the legacy through the internet. But I would still love to work for them. I think I'm a pretty fair dude when it comes to folks. The goal is not to offend, we want to include everybody so that everybody can enjoy the 11 herbs and spices. But then I saw CMO Nick Chavez, the marketing officer. All he had to put was all views are his own, and he put some things on that people probably wouldn't agree with and also would agree with. So if he could do it, I could do it too, because I don't work for them. I like Nick Chavez and the stuff that he's come out with in the last few years of being the CMO. You know, he used to work for Nintendo. He used to do marketing for Nintendo, and that is why I probably like him so much, because Nick Chavez can level with my generation. You know, I grew up on Nintendo, and to have somebody who was working within Nintendo know what the younger generation likes, he's able to apply that, and having kids of his own, he's able to apply that to the marketing to reach out to new folks that otherwise wouldn't be interested. I think that's very smart. Yeah, well, Opie, that is why I'm not famous too. I won't bend my knee to all of that. I'm not going to do anything that's going to jeopardize the brand or the channel or anything like that, but I won't bend my knee to endorsing certain people. I won't bend my knee to saying certain things that people want said that everybody is agreeing with. You know, everybody can't agree on everything. You can't do it. Otherwise, you live in a controlled society where basically the government controls what you think and say and do, and I don't want to live that way. Supposed to live in a freedom of speech country. Now, we don't need hate speech. We don't need to be a-holes. That's my opinion. But I don't want to be told what I need to think, believe, and say. A lot of people out there that hate Christians, but they love Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I will not erase the fact that Uncle Harley was a strong Christian before he died. He turned to God the last few years of his life, and he was able to somewhat stop cursing. The stories say that he stopped cursing completely. He did not. I can tell you for a fact he did not. He still cussed. He just didn't do it as often. And he had a lot of substitute for words. But he turned to God the last few years of his life, and he put a lot of work and effort into that. And I'm not going to forget about that or erase that just because some people don't like Christianity because they had traumatic experiences in it. They haven't had good experiences in it. They don't agree with it, whatever the reasoning. I don't care what religion you are. If you like chicken, you like chicken, but the history of Kentucky Fried Chicken falls under some religious values too. Uncle Harley promised God, because he never prayed or wanted for nothing. And he promised God, he said, Lord, if you make this work, I promise you'll get your share. And he said that he thought that he held to that promise. Because he was living off of a Social Security check for only so much money. I think it was, some say $105, some say $99. And it was monthly, and he couldn't live off of that. He was living in Corbin, Kentucky in that little beat up home that's still there, and he needed to provide for his family. Couldn't afford to quit, So it was 1952 before the new highway was inducted into Corbin, which took away his customer. He knew it was coming. He was offered a fair price for the Sanders Corner Cafe and denied it. Excuse me, because he thought he could start his chicken business and operate it from Corbin if he franchised. So he put some guinea pig franchises out. 1,009 people said no, and he had failed at so many things in his life that he just prayed to the Lord. He said, I pray that this works, Lord. Please make this work, and if it does, I promise you I will make sure you get your share. So 1,009 people said no, and Pete Harmon said yes in Salt Lake City, Utah. He was a friend that he met at some convention somewhere, I believe, and that's how he got a hold of Harmon. And it took off from there, and he made sure that he gave back to his community. He gave the churches, he gave to the Lord, he gave his life to the Lord. There's a religious album that Kentucky Fried Chicken sells in Corbin, Kentucky. And some people here, oh, he was a Christian, we must hate him now because he wouldn't agree with us. He didn't care. He did not care. Not care what religion you were. He went to all kinds of countries to promote Kentucky Fried Chicken after it blew up when he sold in '64. He traveled all over the world. He did not care what your religion, preferences, anything was. If you liked chicken, he liked you. You did not have to agree with his views. Now, would he liked you to at least give the Lord a chance if you weren't religious or in the same religious field as him? Yeah, he would have, but he wasn't going to force you to do it. He just said that he felt bad for all these folks that died before him in their 60s and 50s that didn't get the Lord in their heart. He said you got to get the Lord in your heart. However that is that you have to do it. You have to get him in your heart. And I don't know how I'm talking about this and doing good at the same time here. And he said he felt bad for all those people before him that didn't get to do that. And it makes him wonder how many of them, you know, what happened to their souls. Now, some people don't believe that anything happens to your soul, and if that's the case, you know, you don't have to agree with me. I believe you go to heaven or you go to hell. And you don't have to agree with me. That's perfectly fine. I respect you. My best friend, Tyler, he's an atheist. I'm a Christian. We're best friends, I'll tell you. He is one of the best people that I've had in my life. I do not try to force my beliefs down his throat. He does not try to force me not to believe. We respect each other. Occasionally we'll get into some topics about it, joke a little bit, laugh. But yeah, Kentucky Fried Chicken in Corbin sells a religious album called The Colonel's Mandolin Band. It's based off Uncle Harley's favorite church hymns. And this mandolin band, I don't remember how it came across to him, but he came across it, he loved it, so he purchased the rights to the band and then got them all little black ties and a white suit kind of deal, like his thing. And it was advertised as founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken, Colonel Harlan Sanders, Colonel's Mandolin Band. You could purchase that at the Corbin location, or you could go on eBay and find it. But it's pretty good. I like it. And I'll tell you, I'll be the first to tell you, not everybody in the Colonel's family is religious like he was. Some of them aren't religious at all. I think he still would love them. Uncle Harley wasn't very religious growing up. And he believed in God, and his family went to church occasionally. But growing up, he was not too religious. I mean, he believed in God, but he wasn't too much into it like he was before he died. So he knows what it's like to start off that way. And, you know, so much bad stuff happening in the world, you wonder how can a God allow that to happen? But something happened to him near the end of his life where he just walked into a church and he told Claudia that he wanted to stop sinning. He wanted to try to stop. So he went to a church, and the first thing he asked the pastor was, can turning to the Lord help you quit cursing? He wanted to quit his terrible cursing habit. The pastor said, sure can. Now, to my fellow Christians out there, I also don't agree with telling other people how they need to live their life or that they're sinners. You're a sinner, I'm a sinner, all of us are sinners. It doesn't matter what religion you are, who you like, it doesn't matter. We're all sinners, all sin is sin. All of us fall short. So, to hatefully be pushing ideology that God hates this and that you're a bad person, yada yada, because you love somebody that you might perceive in the Bible as not being allowed to. I don't agree with doing that. That's not what I believe Jesus has told us to do. He told us to love thy neighbor, forgive thy neighbor. So I see a lot of people, self-proclaimed Christians, that are actually spreading hate. You don't do that. If somebody wants to learn, then be willing to be there to teach them. If they're not, that's between them and God. We are not God, so we do not decide what is sin, what is not. God has decided that, and we're also told not to pass judgment. In my opinion, that's how I perceived it my years going to church. Don't know how this turned into a religious talk, but it is, and it's also Tetris. I've had talks with folks about this stuff, and it's made them rethink some of their things. It's made them rethink how they conduct themselves and the things that they've said and done. I myself was not too religious growing up. We were raised on the values of Jesus, but there was a time where, like, even going to church for the first time, I would be uncomfortable talking about God or beliefs. It was not a comfortable topic for me, and over the years it has just become more comfortable for me. Now, I consider myself a strong Christian. You will not see me criticize somebody else for the way they live. My uncle, not Colonel Sanders, but my uncle, my father's brother, belongs to the LGBTQ. I love him to death. I don't think anything of it. He's a great man. Now, you don't have to agree with it, but you also don't have to, spread hate against it. Oh, I thought about starting a podcast and all this stuff, but it doesn't have to do with the topics that we're talking about on this page, and I really don't want to deal with the bullcrap of it. It's not because I'm afraid of anything. I just don't want to deal with it. I got better things to do. I got a mission, and that's to continue this legacy and keep it alive. And I have a goal on this channel. I want to entertain folks. I want to be able to make this feel like a safe place for everybody. Mainly the legacy part of it. So I don't really want to start something where I have to deal with people being upset, because I will just block them so that they don't have to be upset. But I also don't want to spend all that time doing it. But Tyler and I and Matt have talked about starting a podcast a long time ago. Because we used to just sit and talk while playing games all the time. And we're like, you know, we should make a podcast. But then you get into everybody and their mother's doing a podcast today. Just like everybody and their mother on TikTok's a salesman, influencer, or whatever. Everybody's doing podcasts today. Messed that one up, didn't I? I tell you, my views over the last 10 years have completely done a 180 and changed. I used to be in an environment where people would tell me what I needed to think and what I needed to believe. And once I finally got out of that environment, about 5 or 6 years ago, I was able to think for myself, and I realized a lot of the things that I was not raised, but the people not in my family, I want to reiterate this isn't my family, it's people from my church in Florida, people from my neighborhood in Florida were telling me what I needed to believe, what I needed to watch, and if I didn't watch it and I didn't believe it, then I would be a bad person. And being a kid and being told like you're going to be a bad person if you don't do this, you don't want to be a bad person, so you do it. I watched what I was told, believed what I was told to believe by the neighbors and folks, and once I got out of that environment, I started realizing a lot of that stuff was wrong. I realized a lot of the stuff didn't make sense. Some of it contradicted itself. So I started thinking for myself, and my opinions changed. I had a different perspective. Well, that messed me up. I do urge people, there's an interview with Jim Baker. He was not a good person. You know, being in our generation and today's day and age, you know what kind of person he was, what he did. And we're not going to go into that here. But back in the day, nobody knew. Nobody knew. So even Uncle Harley didn't know. He was very careful where he placed his money and who he talked to and what he did. If he didn't like something, he wasn't afraid to voice it. And, you know, the same way. Jim Baker did an interview with him that was a very good interview, and they talked about a lot of key points in Uncle Harley's life leading up to his religious views, and the brand itself, the story of the brand, the stories of him going into the kitchens and him being fussy, all that stuff. I urge people to watch it. It was a good interview. That was one of the last interviews he did before he died. I think I have it up on this page. I think you could find it on YouTube, but I recorded it off of YouTube and put it on my page just so I could archive some information that was true on Uncle Harley. It's a few years old on my page. Even older on the other pages that it could be found on. Another reason why I got so upset with the Kentucky Fried Chicken ads, before people were watching my page and can learn about him, they were seeing those ads completely disregarded Uncle Harley's religious beliefs. And I'm not saying the ads needed to have religion put into it, but the kind of character that they portrayed him as did not portray who he actually was or represented. So people wouldn't have even guessed that he would have been religious. And I think that would be wrong to do. That is wrong to do. Especially to someone's family member, and the family still believes in some of the values that he did. Daryl Hammond's commercial, they did poke fun at the mandolin band, the Colonel's mandolin band, but they were a religious group, and what they ended up doing was having them sing and play about taters and gravy, which is not what the Colonel's mandolin band did. But they were poking fun at it and trying to, you know, reference it. But nobody watching that would have understood why there were mandolin children and mandolins playing in the background of the commercial with Daryl Hammond. The way they made him talk and the way they made him sound and the way he laughed, it all made it seem really creepy and uncomfortable. And I think that's why they fired him and started going with a bunch of different actors, because Daryl Hammond said he had no idea that they were going to fire him from it. Because I think there was enough complaints about it that, not from the family, but from consumers saying it was creepy, that they just did away with it. But people watching that wouldn't have known, why is there mandolin band back there? Well, the history of that is Uncle Harley purchased the mandolin band, the rights to it, and got them all dressed up in colonel outfits. It was a children's group, a church children's group that played hymnal music in church. And that's why they had the mandolin band in the background of that commercial. But nobody would have known about that. Make sense? That's why I didn't like their ads. It just did not paint them in a good light. It did not show the history. They hinted at the history, but they did not explain the history. So nobody would have known. So in a way, it's kind of like changing history in a way. I really don't, when I talked with the brand, they told me that it wasn't their intention to do that. Their intention was Uncle Harley's image and name was becoming a thing of the past, and people were forgetting about him. And they wanted to make him more relevant in today's society. Well, so they tried to give him a younger look and newer people to play him. Disregard the history and the hardships and stuff. But they were trying to make him not forgotten. In the process of doing so, the marketing team had seen the response to some of it, and they ran with it instead of doing it properly. Which is their right to do. He sold the rights to his name and image. They can do what they want. But that's why 8 years ago I was so upset. Now today, fast forward to now, I'm not so upset about them. I could explain to people, I'm in a position now where someone might bring that up and I go, oh, well, here's the history on that. This is why that was back there, and here's the actual history on it, and it might make them want to go look into it more. So, like, my opinions have changed over 8 years. I also think people forget. I mean, everyone's like, how did the Colonel do it? How did he possibly create a recipe, become so famous and successful? He did help out his family, not financially. He wouldn't give away money to family, give it away to complete strangers, which is perfectly all right. That's what I would do. But people, the way he helped the family, he would set them up with franchises. He paid for all the expenses of it, and it was up to the whoever in the family that he gave it to maintain the franchise and earn the money off of that. gave family the opportunity to work. But people forget, and a lot of people want to ignore it because they don't agree with the way he went about it. They wonder how he succeeded. And again, I believe in the Lord. I believe in prayer. He prayed. The first time that he prayed for anything, he never wanted for nothing, never prayed for nothing. He prayed that it would work. He made a promise to God, and God held him to that promise. He opened hospitals in Canada. He did all kinds of things for the community here in the United States and in Canada and across the world, whatever he could, whether that's the Colonel Harlan Sanders Foundation, the Kentucky Colonels, the Shriners, the Freemasons. He did everything that he possibly could to give back to the community since God answered his prayer and helped him succeed. He failed at so many things in life, and I think people look past, they overlook the fact he had God on his side. Yes, there was a lot of sin. There was a lot of ungodly things, such as cheating on his wife, that happened, but everything worked out in the end. He repented, and he made sure to keep his promise. It just goes to show that no perfect man is a Christian. No perfect man exists. And you could come from what the Colonel came from and make something of yourself. You can rewrite the story for yourself. I think a lot of people overlook that. I'm not saying that if you want to succeed like Uncle Harley did, you have to have God on your side, that you have to change your religious views. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm telling you what worked for him. So, maybe that's a sign to give it a try. Maybe it's not a sign. Maybe it's not your thing. But that's how he did it. He trusted everything that he had, and he had nothing left other than the recipe. But everything that he had and trusted in the Lord and prayed that it would work. And it worked. Now maybe I will take up that radio show thing. Somebody offered to put me on a radio show, and I said I wouldn't do it again because the last few times I've been on the show, I got pulled into controversial topics without warning. You know, I could talk about controversial things and be completely calm about it if I'm prepared. If somebody just throws it on me like that, then I'm not prepared. I'm autistic, dudes. I'm autistic. I'm not prepared to just start talking about that stuff. It catches me off guard if I'm not warned about it. So they pulled me into controversial topics. They tried. The last news one was OANN, and I'm not happy with them because they did not tell me that they pre-recorded a segment in it saying that I would be releasing the 11 herbs and spices on their show, and I didn't. But they took a fake recipe that I was explaining on my Instagram was fake and said, oh my god, we're releasing the 11 herbs and spices right here on our show, here it is, and then just put me on the spot like that. And that's not the case. I had to go into how I made a satire skit with Joe Ledington's fake recipe to get attention around it so I could disprove it and promote the truth. And I had to explain that wasn't the recipe. I just won't do that again. I won't go on another show where the intention is not what I think it is. If the intention is to leak a recipe, the intention is to get controversial for clicks and views, I will not go on it. But they offered for me to come on the show, said that we would talk just about Uncle Harley's legacy and his history. And maybe I will take that up so I can talk about that some. I'm moral, just like Uncle Harley. Don't quit because you're 65. Maybe your boat hasn't come in yet. And also, my personal belief, you guys don't have to follow this if you don't agree with it. Do your own thing. My personal belief is put it all in the Lord's hand. Trust Him. He'll take care of it. You just gotta trust Him. You may not understand it at first. May not make sense at first. Bad things might happen at first. But just trust Him. He has it taken care of. He knows what to do. And that's what I'm doing with this channel. That's what I'm doing with this legacy. People don't agree with it. Some people are offended by it. Some people don't like it. Some people don't understand it. Some people are confused. Some people want to know more. I'm trusting the Lord to guide me in what I'm doing. And so long as I do good at it. And sometimes I stray away and I get a little heated and I respond to hate comments. That's always fun, isn't it? And when I do that, He shows me. Like, I see the results. Things start changing, views start dropping. But if I keep on track and I keep spreading what the goal is here, it works out. That's why you guys are here. One viewer, huh? That scare all of you away? That's another thing. I will not change who I am for any company, even Kentucky Fried Chicken, or for anybody based on the principles that they don't want to be offended, they don't like what I have to say. I will not change who I am. Now, if people don't want to know my opinion, they shouldn't ask for it. I have had that happen. Folks would ask me to say something, I ignore it, and I keep getting comments to say something about something, so I say it, and then they don't like what I have to say because it doesn't line up with their worldview, and I'm like, well, if you don't like what I have to say and don't want to know it, then don't ask it. Because I typically don't talk about it unless it's brought up. I don't like shoving my beliefs down someone else's throat. Just like if I don't ask about what you believe, I don't expect you to start telling me it. But if someone asks me, I'll happily tell them. It's just, you might not like it. Holy crap, look at my score. When did I get there? Why did nobody say nothing? Have I been yapping this long? See, if we were on the shorts feed, we'd be having a whole lot of viewers right now. I think I got 40 views last night when we did the Fortnite stream in this format where it's widescreen, and we had 300 viewers on the shorts feed. But I couldn't get the ads to run on the shorts feed like they are here. Scratched my ear, couldn't move fast enough. I was hoping to get it back to back there. Come on. Ah, almost had it. Going a little too fast. Okay, I'm at 2 million now. Might be it. I think it's kind of cool that it's a national meal in Japan. For Christmas, I just poured coffee down my face. Do you know that's what ties used to be? They used to be a napkin for your mouth. I think it's pretty cool. There's several reasons that I heard why. I'm not entirely sure the 100% reason. I have a video up about it that the franchisee in Japan at the time lied about it and said it either came from a dream or he convinced the Japanese population that this was something we did in the United States. And it just became a really big tradition in Japan now. They have really good food there, I hear, and then I've seen photos of. They have Christmas buckets and all kinds of different things. You have to order way in advance in order to get it in time for that. But yeah, I think it's kind of cool. I play Fortnite a lot. There's a lot of people that try to do KFC history just for views. Some of them generally want to hit it. They want to get the views out there or the story out there. Some people do it just for the views. I do it because I want the truth out there. And sometimes I'm wrong, and I correct myself when I'm wrong when I learn more stuff. But based on the facts that I have and the information I have, I correct people on what they say and what they do with Uncle Harley's image name, including the brand itself. I'm not afraid to tell the brand they're wrong on something. Any of the brands. All right. Throw in another ad break, and we'll discuss a little bit of things, and we'll leave. I'm not sure if everybody's going to get an ad or not. I have it kind of set up randomly, and I have a button that I push now that kind of throws it up on there. My score on Marathon Regular is B. On Endless, it is SS. Why can't I get it on B? If there's any much more to discuss, then we're going to go ahead and head off. Tonight we'll do a Fortnite Live. I'm going to make it for members only, so if you want to leave a comment, you'll have to throw a super in there or subscribe to the membership. But you will be able to watch it. We're going to do the new season of Fortnite later tonight. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure you turn notifications on, because it should still notify you even if it's a members only chat. And